Is there any big differences in high-density grazing sheep rather than cows? The bit I've tried so far leads to mostly trampling and not any more utilization, eating of forage-wise. Yeah, I mean, the sheep are definitely going to walk a lot more than the cattle.
Yep.
They just walk, and so then they foul a lot more. Foul as in like get their manure or their scent on a lot more grass or a lot more area than the cattle. The cattle, they're heavier, and so they're gonna have more of a impact on the land just because of their size. So that's kind of the two differences.
Yeah.
They graze pretty similar.
Yep.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think there's the high density grazing thing is kind of interesting because it's not like there's a level to which it's not productive. As in if you okay, it's a nuanced issue, but if you're constantly at a stocking rate where you're just hammering the forage, you're just taking it down every paddock, just down like you're just taking a lawnmower across it, and you're like, man, this is so cool. Uniformly grazing all the weeds and everything like that, and you're gonna get some awesome regrowth from that if you have the proper growing conditions. Really great, we call it landscaping capability. But as far as if you're paying attention at all to animal performance in that kind of a scenario, you can't really do that in perpetuity and expect your animals to do well. And because they're eating a lot that's not something they normally would eat, because you're forcing them to do it based on that high density. And so we're high density compared to any sort of conventional numbers as far as stocking rate, but there's this fine balance between managing height of your grass and making sure you're leaving a lot of residual in the growing season, which is what we like to do, and taking it down too short. And I think we've talked about this too. There's this sort of rhythm that you can do and incorporate both, but you don't want to be constantly hammering stuff at super high densities all the time, because your animals are going to suffer, and also you're sort of gambling a little bit with the fact that if you don't get any moisture, you just shot yourself in the foot, because
that paddock's not going to come back.
It's not going to come back. Versus the other one that has more of a leaf area, there's more of a carbohydrate store for that plant to just jump back from getting clipped, or grazed off, I should say.
There are instances where, with the cockleburrs, I don't know if you followed that, if any of you guys saw that on Greg's YouTube, but where it was 1 million pounds to the acre or something density, which is when you get up to those numbers, that's short duration moves. We were there for half an hour or max.
I think it was 30. I think it was 30-minute moves.
30-minute moves, and then we were moving to the next. So you can get that density, but you gotta. It's a balance between density and time. There's it's like a dance. Dance to dance.
Yeah, because you're trying to manage animal performance and well-being as well as land, but it's not that simple, because there's a lot of benefit to leaving residual.
When you hear people saying, "Oh yeah, I had my cows stocked at 500,000 pound density for all day long," it's that's when you hear those numbers, you can tell, and you know that guy is doing it. He's pushing his animals too hard.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhere around
it's
60,000 pounds per acre.
Because I think we're 40,000 usually, somewhere 40, in that neighborhood. We're usually at 40,000 pounds to the acre.
That's I think we're usually stocked a little heavier because we're half day moves.
Yep.
So for half a day, 260 animal units is on 6 acres or whatever it is that the paddock is on. So that density. But they're only there for half a day, and then we're moving them. Whereas if we were to leave them there for the full day, we'd have to give them a bigger area. So,
but yeah, it's fun to sort of play around with, because it is cool if you can, the land responds to having instances of heavy grazing versus that normal height controlled third residual type stuff that we usually do. So if you can sort of plan in, watch your weather patterns, and look at like what kind of areas on your farm need a little bit more of that like injection of animal density and like consumption in a certain spot. Plan it out and be like, all right, we're gonna go hard for like these couple of moves, and then after that, like give your animals a break and give them as much as they need to eat, let them recover, get that big residual for the paddocks after that, and then maybe scope out another area a couple weeks later and be like, all right, we're gonna hit that if we got the proper conditions for it,
Yeah.
And like we've seen some cool results with paddocks that we've just absolutely steamrolled in comparison to what we normally do.
If you think about like the American bison, like before European settlers or whatever, these 2 million, 3 million head herds, traveling across the landscape. What that like those they were stocked heavy, but they were only there for very, very short. They were on the move, they were constantly moving, and so whatever like that impact that land had, it was absolutely just hammered, and then it was gone. And the animals were still moving, so they were able to keep that nutrition flowing through them. They were never stocked that heavy and stationary, if that makes sense. Like they always had fresh piece to move to. And that's kind of what you're trying to replicate is you're trying to get that density, but you're also trying to keep them full or keep them eating.
Like keep their diet and their microbes at a good spot, because once they start eating a lot of woody lignified stuff, a lot of like noxious weeds, like low nutrition quality stuff, then their gut biome changes and the nutrition that they're getting changes, and then they can start to drop condition when you don't want them to.